Welcome to my AEW Full Gear thoughts video, and for the first time in a long time I was able to watch the buy-in 0 hour Saturday tailgate brawl, however you want to call it this time. Overall, a bit underwhelming I felt this 0 hour. You had 4 matches on the card. Starting with a 4 corners tag match for $200,000, which was fine, won by the Bang Bang Gang. Then we moved on to a tag match between RPG Vice and Boom and Doom, which seemed more interested in bringing in Paul White, Big Show, into the fray and setting him up for a match later down the line with them, potentially at World's End. And then we got a very pointless match between Hook and Eddie Kingston versus the Workhorsemen, which went less than 2 minutes, and Hook and Kingston won immediately. And yeah, it just kind of was pointless. It had some reasoning for later on with the main event, establishing that both men were here at the show, but besides that, a waste of time. And with what happens in the main event, which I'll get to, I feel like AEW really dropped the ball with the potential of Hook and Eddie as a tag team. So yeah. So they were the first 3 matches on the 0 hour. And like I said, they were fine. The tag match was fine. The 4 corners tag match was fine, and the Hook and Kingston match was a bit of a disappointment. That being said, though, one of the best matches on the card was the final match of the 0 hour, which actually, just like how last month's full Wrestle Dream, you had FTR and Jet Speed bleeding over from the 0 hour in opening the main show mid match. We got it the same here between El Sky Team of Mystico, Masquerado and Neo versus the Don Callis family of Konosuke Takeshita, Hechizero and Kazuchika Okada for the CMLL World Trios Championships. Really great match to open the show with, and I'd like to say this really felt like the opener instead of being part of the 0 hour, even though it started, and it told a really good story. As Hechizero and Takeshita started the match, there was no sign of Okada at all. Not in the building, he hadn't turned up, leaving the Don Callis family down 1 man as a handicap match, but that didn't stop them from equalising the match by taking out Mystico and laying him out, so it became a straight tag team match until the main show, where Okada finally made his presence made and joined the match, immediately getting in an argument with Takeshita. By doing this, it furthers the story of these two, which is only a matter of time before things blow up between them. And then Misako came down for the save and was the star of the match. Literally was amazing, and it ended the way you would expect it, with Hechizero taking the fall for the Don Callis family as El Sky Team retained their CMLL World Trios Championships. Following that, we got the scheduled opener of the show of Pac versus Darby Allin, which was a real banger, as it told a great story of Darby isn't just the daredevil that we all know him as. He's legit a good wrestler, as that was told in the opening of him out wrestling Pac for a good couple of minutes before Pac stopped that by press slamming Darby from the apron, looking to throw him onto the announce table, but straight onto the floor, and then really getting over his sicko side and truly getting over the reason why he's called a bastard. After being put through a flaming table at Blood and Guts, Darby's back was covered in bandages because of all the burns. So obviously that's a giant weak spot. So of course Pac rips off the bandages and attacks the burns, which the crowd reacted brilliantly to. And then this just carried on, and this was how we got a bit of a back and forth between the two, with big spots with the crowd reacting fairly to, which led to the finish of the match, where after a Black Arrow attempt by Pac, Darby countered it into a Scorpion Deathlock, which he seemingly is taken on as his new finisher, besides the coffin drop, and looked to have the match won, only for Wheeler Yuta to run down, throw the Sting bat in the ring, get on the apron, distract the ref and Darby for Pac to utilise the bat, hitting Darby behind the ref's back and getting the win. Especially after what Pac said, that he promised there would be no outside interference and this was going to be a straight singles match, clearly setting up that this feud still isn't over, of Darby versus the Death Riders. But besides that feud carrying on, this was a real banger of an opener. So yeah, great match. Afterwards, we got the four-corner tag match of Timeless Love Bombs of Timeless Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa versus Babes of Wrath, Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron versus the Sisters of Sin, Julia Hart and Sky Blue versus Megan Bayne and Maria Shafir. The winning team of this match would get to choose the stipulation for their semi-finals in the AEW Women's Tag Team Championship tournament. With that mouthful out of the way, this match was a chaotic one, in the best way possible, with us getting them showing the potential of what we could see between all four teams in their semi-final matches of the Timeless Love Bombs and Megan Bayne and Maria Shafir facing off to begin with, before we got the Sisters of Sin and the Babes of Wrath facing off, before mixing it up a bit. But the main takeaway was that Mina was this match's punching bag, just getting passed around between both heel teams, which led to quite a nice bit of continuity and continuing the story of, as these two teams were the one team in Blood and Guts, but then they finally fractured and came to blows here, and in a nice bit of a parallel, we got the exact same ending to Blood and Guts, with Maria having Mina in a submission hold as Megan Bayne holds Tony back, but this time, instead of forfeiting the match, she's able to save her partner, and this kind of leads to the finish of the match quite soon after, with Tony and Harley in the ring and trading roll-up attempts back and forth until Tony is just able to get that lucky roll-up and get the free for the win. So it's the Timeless Love Bombs to get to choose their stipulation against Maria Shafir and Megan Bayne. Like I said, this was a chaotic, fun match. Both of the face teams were super over, but obviously no surprise that the Timeless Love Bombs were a bit more over and the crowd were happy to see them win. So yeah, very fun match. From one match for the future of the tag team championships to the actual tag team championships of FTR versus Brodido. This is my favourite match of the night. I love this match, as well did the crowd. They were electric and hyped for this match, and it was awesome. It had a very, very simple story, but told so much in the choreography of the match, which was here's two teams. One has been together for 9 years and has won pretty much every tag team championship in the world in FTR, and here's another the current tag team champions of Brodido, who've only been a tag team for a handful of months. So FTR have the experience over Brodido, but Brodido are a lot more fresher and over the crowd, and they're still really well done as a team. So it was more or less who's going to be the better team, and this, like I said, led it to the story with Brodido getting the upper hand quite early on, and everything seems going well, with obviously Brody being the counterpart and the strength to both Dax and Cash, before obviously things kind of change after a while with Brody hitting a suicide dive towards Dax to the outside, but Stokely pushes Dax out of the way and kind of gets knocked out with the suicide dive. Obviously didn't fully connect, but still the intent was he was taking the bullet. By doing that really changed the complexity of the match. It allowed FTR really to get the heat over for a bit, and this led to, again, some big moves and very close pinfalls, including one with the use of the championship involved. But in the end, after taking Brody out of the equation, it's Bandido alone, injured, and is still willing to fight, and stands tall and tells FTR to bring it, to which they do, and Shatter Machine is all it takes for them to finish the match and become your new AEW Tag Team Champions. From going from my favourite match of the night to, I'd say, definitely my least favourite match of the night. I wouldn't say it's a bad match, but it was definitely the weakest match of the night, of the Casino Gauntlet match for the brand new AEW Championship of the National Championship, which I don't think they should have, because they've got way too many belts, but hey ho, AEW just keeps introducing belts, and it kind of demeans a lot of them when you keep introducing new ones, because once everyone has one, none of them matter. Anyway, what I'm going to do is go through the spots first and then talk about the match. So in spot number 1 and 2, which were announced beforehand, it was Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. Spot 3 was Ricochet. Spot 4 was Claudio Castagnoli. Spot 5 was Daniel Garcia. Spot 6 was Orange Cassidy. Spot 7 was Wheeler Yuta. Spot 8 was Kevin Knight. Spot 9 was Roderick Strong. Spot 10 was Mark Davis. Spot 11 was Speedball Mike Bailey. And spot 12 was the only real surprise spot in the match, which was Daddy Magic Matt Menard, which led to a fun spot with Garcia being shocked and those two brawling off and that. But they are your all 9 entrants in this match. And to be honest, it's quite a weak lineup. There is no big surprises. It's all just everyone that we see on weekly TV, which is great. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's just normally with these sort of Casino Gauntlet, Royal Rumble type sort of matches, you normally have a surprise or two. So it was lacking in that, and I felt like that affected the crowd as well, especially after seeing what happened in the past match of the crowd being so electric for the tag match. And like I said, the match wasn't terrible, it was fun enough, I felt, but it really followed a formula of one person comes out, they dominate, and then the next couple of people come out, they dominate with them before they get taken out for the next person, as we didn't really get the Bobby and Shelton clash that the match set up to have, as the Demand took out the Syndicate, only for obviously the not the Blackpool Combat Club, the Death Riders, to take over once they came in for a while, and then you get, Cassidy comes in, runs wild, only for Kevin Knight to then come in and run wild, only for Roderick Strong. You get the idea. And yeah, I mean, there was some fun parts of like the Death Riders did take over and that led to some fun stuff happening. But we did get to see Jet Speed come face to face, which was really good. And for a match and a brand new title that was tailor-made for Bobby Lashley to win, because clearly they want him as a singles champion, but not the world champion, I was surprised he wasn't the winner here, as he wasn't involved in the finish, as the finish came when, out of nowhere, Ricochet steals the win with hitting the Spear of God on Kevin Knight to become the inaugural AEW National Champion, which was a surprise. Fair enough, well done to Ricochet and that, but it means it's just going to be continuing the story of the Demand and the Syndicate. So yeah, wasn't a terrible match, but definitely the weakest of the night. Following the Casino Gauntlet, we got Kyle O'Reilly versus Jon Moxley in a no-holds-barred match, which was both brutal and brilliant in its storytelling, because it really, really is full of story for me. After what's happened in the past couple of days following preceding the show of Mox was the one to tap out in Blood and Guts to Kyle, and this whole idea of Mox is losing control and he knows deep down he is the weak link in the Death Riders, but he's also the leader of the Death Riders, but he can't come to terms with it, and that was really fed through this match, as the match itself gave Kyle the spotlight that he deserves in this match. And this single match did more for Kyle, I felt, than anything he had in WWE in his singles run as Cool Kyle. The match itself started off strong with Kyle jumping Mox and out wrestling him for a while, and this was also led to Bryan Danielson on commentary really getting over the no hold barred stipulation of why certain moves in this match are allowed but are not allowed in normal matches, because of how dangerous they are and the effects they leave. But it wasn't long before Mox got out, had to rethink his strategy, where Marina Shafir basically took command and handed Mox a fork and told him to use it and to beat Kyle. Obviously, this led to Kyle getting busted open, to no surprise, quite badly. Not as badly as somebody else on the show, which I'll get to later, but quite a lot. This led to Mox working over Kyle out for a bit before getting a chair and like pulmonizing his arm. But this led to the finish of the match as well, where after pulmonizing his arm and seemingly injuring it, Mox seemingly had the match won, only for Kyle to just full on adrenaline trap Mox in the ankle lock, wrap the steel chain around it, only for Mox to tap out again for the surprise loss again for Mox. This character is fascinating that they're introducing for Mox, and it's the second time that Kyle has made Moxley tap out within a 10-day period, and fantastic, awesome match, I would say. Definitely worth checking out. And after the match, Mox seemingly showed a sign of respect to Kyle before he just couldn't allow himself the fact that he lost it, and he's in his own mind thinking, I didn't lose the match, I won, but he knows he didn't. So it's a very interesting character, and I do really want to know where it goes next. From one brutal match to another, as we got Mark Briscoe versus Kyle Fletcher for the TNT Championship in a no disqualification match as well, and with the added stipulation, if Mark loses this match, he must join the Don Callis family. These two didn't waste any time to really take advantage of the no DQ stipulation and really get over the brutalness of the match, and also straight away differing it from their previous match at Wrestle Dream, with Briscoe obviously having everything to lose in this match, as even if he doesn't win the title, he loses and has to join the family. Obviously, it was a plunder affair with chairs, ladders, steel stairs, tables, you name it, was in the match. With obviously Briscoe yet again putting his body on the line for our entertainment, as he attempted very early on to hit a suicide dive onto Kyle, but Kyle moved out the way and Briscoe landed on a ladder so much fast and with so much momentum onto the ladder, it pretty much disintegrated upon impact, as it wasn't the ladders that we're used to from like WWE. It was like a really steel small ladder, so it just bent, which was very, as a visual, great. And this brings over to my other thought on this match, that Fletcher really also held his own in this stipulation, with him able to take a lot of this punishment that saw Briscoe give, but Fletcher was able to hold its own, and I felt like it almost had this Randy Orton, Cactus Jack vibe of a mark of respect that Fletcher really held his own in this sort of match. So yeah, then this led to the biggest spot of the match, which saw both men fighting each other on a ladder in the ring over a table full of thumbtacks, which everyone bought as the finish of the match, which is surprising, as Fletcher lost the fight and Briscoe hit a froggy bow off the ladder onto Fletcher through the table for a super close 2 count. And yeah, everyone bought it as the finish. The actual finish came after several attacks with the screwdriver. That has been a vocal point for the Don Callis family throughout this year. And Fletcher seemingly had Briscoe on the rocks, but that fighting spirit of Briscoe, especially with the crowd a lot more alive than they were for the Casino Gauntlet match, behind Briscoe, and it was Briscoe fighting back, hitting a razor's edge through a barbed wire table, and then followed that up with a J Driller to win the match, and finally, as it feels like a long time coming, finally wins something big on pay-per-view, which is the TNT Championship. He is your new champion. A long time coming, much deserved, very great match. Recommend it. Afterwards, we got the six-man tag team match of Josh Alexander and the Young Bucks versus Kenny Omega and Jurassic Express for $1 million. Before I get into the actual match, I do want to just talk about briefly what was on the line, being $1 million. AEW really like to do these. Here's a bunch of money on the line matches. Now, I've got no problem with that. It always adds something to the match. Now, in their time of doing these matches, it has varied from amount to amount, which is fair enough. But at some point, you've got to kind of look at it realistically. I know this is in the kayfabe world of wrestling, but at the same time, $1 million is an insane amount of money to have on the line, and is a bit, for me, too far-fetched. So yeah, with that being said, I felt like that was a bit too far for me for the money. I know obviously you had $500,000 in the last match between the Young Bucks and Jurassic Express at Wrestle Dream, so you need to top that, but still, I just feel like it's too much. The match, on the other hand, was really good, which told us, had the story of the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander were not on the same page in the same book. They really didn't blend well together, with Alexander really just kind of taking over the match for them and taking control, as well as Kenny and Jurassic Express worked really well together. They did great, and this kind of led to a bit of a back and forth before the Bucks got their win back after Wrestle Dream by hitting the EVP trigger on Perry for the win in the end. It might sound like I'm not talking much about the match, and that's because there wasn't a lot in the match itself. It was more about the aftermatch, if you know what I mean. As afterwards, Don Callis tries to get the Bucks to come with him quite quickly, get him out the arena with all the money, only for the rest of the Don Callis family to be left in the ring beating down Kenny Omega, for the Bucks to turn around looking conflicted, looking at the money, looking at Kenny, and finally making the decision of screw the money, friendship, and they run down, lay out the Don Callis family as Callis steals the million, and we finally get the reuniting of the Bucks and Omega as the Elite are back together, and Santo as the Bucks have finally turned babyface in what was a fun little breather before the last two matches. In our penultimate match of the evening, we got the AEW Women's World Championship match of Chris Statlander versus Mercedes Moné, with both women looking for huge wins here. Moné obviously looking to capture her number 14th championship, as well as Statlander looking to avenge her loss to Mercedes 1 year ago to the date at Full Gear 2024. So a lot on the line. And don't be fooled by the fast pace of the opening of this match with Statlander having the momentum and really working over Monet and that to begin with, as after a bad landing from Statlander off the top rope, seemingly injuring her forearm, Monet takes full advantage of it, targets the arm, and really brings the match to more of a slower pace. And this isn't a problem, because some matches work with a better slow pace, and you don't always want every match to have the same fast-paced energy. But also, it felt like the crowd were a bit tired at this point. They were a bit quiet. They did pick up for it near the end, which I'll get to, but for a good chunk of this match, they were definitely quiet. During this period of Monet working that over Statlander, we got a fun spot of Monet hitting 14 amigos in correlation with every belt she's got, and the one she's looking to capture here, being the AEW Women's World Championship. But in the end, it's the fighting spirit of Statlander doesn't allow her to have another loss to Monet, as she just keeps fighting back, and that which she gets back in the match after a blue thunderbomb to the outside, on the outside, and that which brings the bout more even with some close falls between both women, which brings it to the finish of the match, where Monet seemingly looks to send the Statlander into the turnbuckle only for Statlander to reverse it into a tombstone and pin Monet for the win and retain her AEW Women's World Championship. So, on the one hand, congratulations, Statlander's reign as world champ continues, and she's got a big win, which is good, and she avenges her loss from last year. Bad news the main thing that's coming out for me is this is the second time Monet has lost in a world championship match on AEW. She lost to Toni Storm at All In. And it does make her challenging for the big belt look kind of definitely mid-card in my eyes, as she can never win the big one, which kind of devalues the rest of the 13 championships she has got, as they definitely look below the world title, and she can't do it. That may be the story they're telling, but for me, it really does make them devalue those other belts, and just shows that she can't do the big one when it counts. But that being said, it was still a fun match. And this brings us to the main event of the evening, which was Samoa Joe versus Hangman Adam Page for the AEW World Championship inside a steel cage. And what a super brutal and bloody cage match this was between these two, as there was no wasting time getting to there being colour, as Joe got busted open very quickly with a gusher, and as the match continued, it was clear that the cut was real deep on his forehead, because it was just constantly bleeding throughout the match, and his whole face was covered. This, I think, also may have affected the match as a whole, as it did seem to go quite quickly. I don't know if that's a playing factor in the match, but it also did add to the match. I will admit, having Joe busted open big time really added to the match itself, as well as obviously Paige got busted open too, but nowhere as bad. And yeah, these two just went to war in this match, hit back and forth with big moves, using the cage as this brutal element that a steel cage should be used, that AEW does really well, as they don't use it often. And every time they do, it is a real big, like, oh boy. A bit like how Hell in a Cell used to be. Obviously, with the Punk and Drew match, that feel of Hell in a Cell did come back. But for the longest time, it was just a match. Things then seemingly wrapped up quite quickly. Like I said, I think maybe with the cut that Joe got, it did lead to him wrapping it up quite quickly, with Shibata trying to interfere and climb in the cage, which Eddie Kingston came down and laid out Shibata, stopping him from getting in the cage, only for Hobbs to actually get in the cage, take out the ref, and for Paige to lay him out, only for Hook to run down, wake up the ref before attacking Paige, turning heel, rejoining the Ops, which led to the finish of the match, where he just allowed Joe to pick up the win and become your new AEW champion. I mean, on one hand, cool, Samoa Joe is getting another world title run, maybe one last hurrah before he looks to retire. But on the other hand, is that it? Is that it for Hangman's second reign already? Only a handful of months, and don't get me wrong, he had some really good matches, but like, that's another weak title reign for what is the main character of AEW, which Hangman has always been presented with. And I know it's always, the chase for the title is always better than the actual title run, but surely Hangman deserves a solid title run. So yeah, this was a bit of a flat ending to Full Gear and that. But they didn't leave the crowd completely annoyed, as we got the return of Swerve Strickland, looking to take what he wants to get back, the AEW World Championship, from the man that he beat originally for it, Samoa Joe, with Strickland beating down the Ops Dojo, which is just basically a load of security guards, and the show went off the air with him and Paige standing tall, staring down Joe. So yeah, definitely wasn't expecting that to be the finish to the pay-per-view. In conclusion, AEW Full Gear 2025, another really solid show. What can I say? I say it every time. AEW just keep putting on solid cards. Too many matches for one show, I will admit. It's from one extreme to another. I think there is that perfect middle ground between WWE's 5 match cards to AEW's 14. I think 6 or maybe 7 matches is the sweet spot. Great match between, like I said, FTR and Brodido. Loved the fact that Kyle O'Reilly got the spotlight in his match. The furthering of Jon Moxley's character is great. It's great to see that finally Briscoe gets a big win and wins the championship. But that being said, there were some underwhelming parts on the show. Like I said, the Casino Gauntlet match was a bit of an underwhelming match for me. And the end to Hangman's second reign, like I said, it's just disappointing, is all I can say. But that, even though it ends on a somber note, it's overall a really solid show, and I would definitely recommend it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you soon. Bye.